Today we're making a hand-forged bottle opener. Let's get started. We're starting off with a 1-inch wide by 1/4 inch thick piece of mild steel. As you can see, I've left the piece of stock full length to make it easier while punching the hole, so I can hold the stock between my legs like what you've seen me do before instead of using a hold fast. The first step in the process is to find the center line of the piece of stock. Now I should have recorded this portion showing my preparation, but I'll do my best to explain instead. In this case, since we have a 1-inch wide piece, I've gone ahead and scribed a center line at 1/2 inch. I've also scribed a line 1/2 inch from the top of the bar, and where those two lines intersect, I've marked with a center punch so I can find the spot when the steel is hot. This is where we want to put the top of the slotted punch. Here I'm using a 3/4 inch. Once we have our initial indent in the steel and it's easier to find, I make progressively harder strikes, trying to drive the material under the punch down to create a clean slot. It's important during this step to remember to cool the tip of the punch so you don't lose the temper on the tool. Once I'm satisfied with the depth of the slot, I can flip the piece over and line up my punch to knock out the little piece of steel to create a clean hole. Now this final portion may work easier when the piece is a little cooler so it doesn't distort the metal so much, but since I don't know any better, we're going to run with it. So after some finagling and flattening the piece up again, I'm ready to try and knock the hole out while the piece is much cooler this time. My guess is the colder temperature allows the piece to shear off easier than to bend or stretch. Finally, we've knocked that little nub of metal out of the center of the piece. Let go, punch, let go. You can see we've made a nice clean hole here, and now we're ready to start with a drift to drift that eye open. Here I'm using a 1/2 inch diameter drift. That's the biggest one I had on hand, but if you guys have a larger drift available, I'd go ahead and use that, probably up to 3/4 or 1 inch. It'll make your life easier in the next step when we start to open the eye up using the horn of the anvil. So as we start to drift the eye of the bottle opener using the horn of the anvil, I'm going to start by knocking down the corners, and then I'm going to rotate the eye around the horn so that I'm evenly stretching the eye. So once the corners are knocked down, I'm going to work the eye around the horn, but I'm not hitting the piece perpendicular to the anvil surface. I'm at a bit of an angle, maybe 20 degrees from perpendicular, and this is so we don't get any cold shuts in the eye, and it gives the cross section more of a round profile, which adds strength. So continuing to stretch the eye using the horn, I'm looking for about 1 inch inside diameter for the eye. I'm also using this heat to planish any rough hammer blows, as well as make sure the piece is square and the eye is centered in the bar. Now this next step is somewhat irrelevant to the functionality of the bottle opener, but I'm going to add a slight taper into the bar so that it's slightly thinner at the base of the eye and gradually gets wider up until the point that I'll cut the bottle opener off using a hot cut Hardy. Symmetry is critical here, so take your time, make sure everything is square and centered. Once I'm satisfied with the size and shape of the eye, I'm going to gently tap the top of the eye down to make the recognizable oblong shape that bottle openers have. And once again, if the eye isn't symmetrical at this point, it will be very noticeable. Next step here, we're going to make the lip of the bottle opener. I'm using a pair of locking pliers to hold the punch with a 1/4 inch rounded point, and lining the center of the punch about 3/16 of an inch back from the inside of the eye, I'm going to start to make the depression. Once the impression is established, I start to angle the punch with the tip facing into the center of the eye so that I move the material out towards the center to get the more pronounced lip. Once again, this has no impact on the functionality of the bottle opener. I'm just adding some lines using chisels to create a nicer aesthetic. Feel free to go wild at this point using engraving, inlays, whatever, or just keep it plain and enjoy the simplicity of your hammer marks. Now we're going to cut the bar down to the final length of the bottle opener. I've left mine with about 4 inches of length from the base of the eye. Using a hot cut hardy tool, I'm going to make a nice clean cut. Try not to cut so deep into the piece that you damage the edge of your tool. In my case, this is mild steel, so I had a suspicion it was going to deform regardless. You can also use a hacksaw, bandsaw, or angle grinder with a cutoff wheel for this step. Some final shaping here. I'm going to add a slight radius into the handle using the horn and a rawhide mallet so I don't damage any of the chisel work or add any more hammer marks. So off screen, I went over the bottle opener with a wire wheel and knocked off any sharp corners with some 120 grit sandpaper. Here, I brought the bottle opener back up to a black heat, too hot to touch with my bare hand, and I'm adding some beeswax using a cloth. This will seal the metal and give it a nice surface finish. And here's the final product. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit the like button and subscribe, and let me know what other kind of videos you'd like to see.